If you can't cry even when you want to, your body isn't being cold, it's shut down to survive. According to psychology, emotional numbness isn't strength, it's your nervous system protecting you from feeling too much at once. What's really happening is you've been hurt so many times that your brain decided feeling nothing is safer than feeling everything. You're not broken or defective, you're in survival mode. Psychology calls this emotion. It happens when trauma becomes too heavy to carry consciously, so your body buries it deep, numbing you out to protect your sanity. But here's the cost. You don't just stop feeling pain, you stop feeling joy, love, excitement, everything. You're alive but not living, present but not here. And the worst part is people think you don't care, when really you care so much it broke you. Before we go deeper into what's actually happening in your brain, if this is already hitting close to home, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel because we dive into real psychology and emotional healing here. And stay until the end because I'm going to tell you exactly how to start feeling again without forcing it. Now, let's talk about what's happening neurologically. When you experience repeated emotional pain, your amygdala goes into overdrive. This is the part of your brain that processes fear and emotional responses. After enough trauma, it starts flagging emotions themselves as threats. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, steps in and hits the emergency shutdown button. It's not a conscious choice. Psychologically, this often starts in childhood. Maybe you cried and were told to stop being dramatic. Maybe you expressed hurt and were punished for it. So you learned early that emotions aren't safe to feel. Your developing brain absorbed that lesson and built walls accordingly. Those walls served you then, but they're suffocating you now. Here's what most people don't understand about emotional numbness. It's not that the feelings disappeared. They're still there, locked behind layers of psychological protection. Your body is holding on to every unexpressed grief, every swallowed anger, every moment you needed to cry but couldn't. That emotional data doesn't vanish. It gets stored in your nervous system. Neurologically, this shows up as dysregulation. Your autonomic nervous system gets stuck between hyperarousal and hyperarousal. You're either anxiously numb or numbly anxious. Behaviorally, you might notice certain patterns. You can watch the saddest movie and feel nothing. You can receive terrible news and your face stays blank. People around you might call you strong or resilient. They admire how you hold it together. But inside, you're screaming at yourself, wondering what's wrong with you. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Highly sensitive people often become the most emotionally numb adults. Because when you feel everything deeply as a child, and the world punishes you for it, your brain learns to shut it all down. You don't lose your sensitivity. You bury it under layers of protection so thick that accessing it feels impossible. This is where a lot of high achievers find themselves. They function perfectly on the outside, while being completely disconnected on the inside. They meet every deadline, handle every crisis, show up for everyone. But when they're alone and try to access their own feelings, there's nothing there, just emptiness where emotion should be. From a trauma perspective, this makes perfect sense. When your emotional expression was met with rejection, abandonment, or punishment, your brain learned that emotions equal danger, so it removed your access to them. But stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. That numbness you needed for survival starts costing you connection. You can't fully engage in relationships because you can't access vulnerability. You can't celebrate wins because you can't feel joy. You can't process losses because you can't access grief. You end up watching your own life happen from a distance. Psychologically, there's often shame layered on top of the numbness. You think something is fundamentally wrong with you. You compare yourself to people who cry easily and wonder why you can't do something so basic, so human. You might even try to force yourself to feel. You watch sad content hoping it'll break through. But forced feeling doesn't work because your nervous system is locked in protection mode. Here's the part most people miss, and this is crucial. You can't think your way out of emotional numbness. This isn't a cognitive problem, it's a nervous system problem. Your body learned to shut down emotions as a survival response, and your body has to learn it's safe to feel again. That process doesn't happen overnight. It requires slowly building capacity to tolerate small amounts of emotion without your system immediately shutting down. It's like physical therapy for your emotional range. Neurologically, you're retraining your amygdala to stop treating emotions as threats. You're teaching your prefrontal cortex that it's safe to lower the protective barriers. Behaviorally, this might start small. Maybe you notice a flicker of irritation, and instead of immediately suppressing it, you let it exist for 5 seconds. Maybe you feel a tiny spark of happiness, and you don't shut it down with cynicism. These micro moments of allowing emotion are how you rebuild your capacity to feel. You're not trying to go from 0 to sobbing. You're trying to go from frozen to slightly thawed. Now here's what often happens in this process, and pay attention, because this is where most people give up. When the numbness starts to lift, the first thing you feel isn't relief, it's overwhelm, because all those unfelt feelings you've been storing start surfacing. This is where a lot of people panic and slam the door shut again. They think feeling this much means something is wrong, but really it means something is finally right. Your system is releasing the backlog. From a therapeutic perspective, this is why working with someone trained in trauma and nervous system regulation is so important, because when those walls start coming down, you need support to handle what's behind them. Psychologically, part of this healing involves grieving the childhood you needed where emotions were safe, grieving the years you spent disconnected from yourself. That grief itself is healing, because grief is feeling, and when you can finally grieve what you lost, it means you're starting to feel again. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Sometimes the inability to cry isn't just about current numbness, it's about loyalty to your younger self. The child who learned that crying brought punishment or abandonment. That child made a pact with themselves to never cry again, because crying meant danger. And adult you is still honoring that childhood vow. Breaking that pact requires compassion for the child who made it, acknowledging that it served you then, thanking that protective mechanism for keeping you safe. Behaviorally, creating safety for emotions looks different for everyone. For some people, it's being alone in a space where no one can see or judge. For others, it's being with someone who won't try to fix or stop the feeling. For some, it's engaging the body first through movement or breath work, because emotions are stored somatically. For others, it's creative expression, where feelings can emerge through art or writing instead of through tears. The key is finding what signals safety to your specific nervous system, because your body won't release emotions if it doesn't feel safe to do so. From a neurological standpoint, there are practices that help. Bilateral stimulation, like tapping or eye movements, can help process stuck emotions. Somatic experiencing can release trauma held in the body. Breath work can regulate the nervous system enough to allow feeling. But none of these are quick fixes. Emotional numbness that took years to develop won't dissolve in a weekend workshop. Here's what recovery actually looks like. It's not a linear progression from numb to emotional. It's waves. Some days you feel more, some days you shut down again. Some days you cry for the first time in years. Some days you're back behind glass. And that's normal. That's healing. Your nervous system is learning a new pattern. Psychologically, you might notice you start feeling in specific contexts first. Maybe with animals before with people, maybe alone before in company, maybe anger before sadness, because anger feels safer than vulnerability. Honor whatever comes first. Don't judge the order or the speed. Your system knows what it can handle and when. If anger is emerging, that's not a problem. Anger is emotion. Anger means you're thawing. Now, this next part is important, so stay with me. As you start feeling again, you might realize how much of your identity was built around being the strong one, the unshakable one, the person who never falls apart. And you might grieve that identity too, because being able to feel means you're not that person anymore. You're someone who can be affected. That vulnerability might feel like weakness at first, but it's actually the strongest thing you can do. Choosing to feel in a world that taught you not to is an act of courage. From a relational perspective, when you start feeling again, your relationships will shift. People who were comfortable with your numbness might be uncomfortable with your emotions. And that's information. That shows you who can handle the real you and who only wanted the protected version. Let people reveal themselves. Here's another angle most people ignore. The physical body holds emotional memory. Your shoulders might carry tension from years of holding back tears. Your jaw might be tight from clenching against sadness. Your stomach might be in knots from swallowed anxiety. These somatic symptoms are your body's way of saying the emotions are still here, just stored differently. Working with the body through yoga, massage, or somatic therapy can sometimes unlock emotions that talk therapy can't reach because the body remembers what the mind has forgotten. From a biochemical perspective, chronic emotional suppression affects your neurotransmitters. Serotonin levels can drop, dopamine regulation gets disrupted, your entire chemical balance shifts to maintain the numbness. This is why some people find that as they heal emotionally, physical symptoms they've had for years suddenly improve. The migraine disappears, the digestive issues calm down, the chronic pain lessens. Your body was using those symptoms to process what your emotions couldn't. Psychologically, there's also the phenomenon of selective numbness. You might be able to feel anger, but not sadness, or you can feel for others, but not for yourself. This selective shutdown gives clues about which emotions felt most dangerous in your past. Anger might have been punished harshly, so it got locked away first. Sadness might have been met with dismissal, so you learned to skip it entirely. Understanding your specific pattern helps you know where to start. If you can feel anger, that's your entry point. Let yourself feel that fully, and other emotions often follow. Here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes people who can't cry can laugh, and laughter, even when it feels hollow, is your nervous system practicing emotional release. It's like your body is remembering how to let things move through you. So if you can laugh, even if you can't cry, that's actually a good sign. It means the pathways aren't completely blocked. From a developmental perspective, the age at which you learn to shut down matters. If it happened very young, before you had language, the healing might need to be more body-based than talk-based, because you're working with pre-verbal trauma that got encoded before you could make sense of it with words. This is where modalities like EMDR, somatic experiencing, or neurofeedback can be particularly effective. Now, let's talk about something practical. When you're trying to rebuild your capacity to feel, environment matters enormously. You need a space that feels genuinely safe, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, where you won't be interrupted, judged, or told to snap out of it. For some people, that's alone in their car. For others, it's in a therapist's office. Some people need music, others need silence. Some need dim lighting, others need to be in nature. Experiment until you find what helps your nervous system relax enough to lower its guard. Here's a pattern I see often. People who can't cry sometimes have dreams where they're crying, or they wake up with tears on their face but no memory of what caused them. This is your subconscious processing what your conscious mind can't handle yet. Your brain is doing the work even when you're asleep. Those dream tears count. They're evidence that the feelings are there, just waiting for safe passage. From a neuroplasticity standpoint, your brain can change. The neural pathways that shut down your emotions can be rewired, but it requires consistency and repetition. You're essentially building new roads in your brain, roads that lead to feeling instead of away from it. Every time you let yourself feel even a little, you're strengthening those new pathways. Psychologically, there's often a fear underneath the numbness, a fear that if you start crying, you'll never stop, that if you let one feeling through, they'll all come flooding and drown you. This fear makes sense, but it's not accurate. Emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. Even the biggest grief eventually crests and recedes. Your body has a natural capacity to regulate intensity. You won't stay in the peak of emotion forever. It will move through you if you let it. Here's something about timing. Sometimes people can't cry during the actual crisis. They stay numb through the emergency. Then 6 months later, when everything is fine, they fall apart. This is normal. This is your nervous system waiting until you're safe enough to process. The delayed reaction isn't a malfunction. It's actually your system working correctly. From a social perspective, our culture has weird messages about crying. We say it's okay to cry, but then we're uncomfortable when people actually do. We tell men, especially, that tears are weakness. We tell women their tears are manipulation. These contradictory messages make it even harder to access emotion. You're fighting against your own history and societal conditioning simultaneously. But here's what I want you to really hear. The people who can cry aren't weaker than you. They're not more broken or more sensitive. They just have a nervous system that still trusts emotions are safe to express. You can build that trust too. It just takes time and the right approach. Not forcing, not judging, just slowly showing your body that it's safe now. Here's a specific technique that sometimes helps. If you're trying to access tears, start with yawning. Yawning and crying use similar facial muscles and nervous system pathways. Sometimes triggering a yawn can open the door to tears. It sounds simple, but it works because you're accessing the physical mechanism rather than trying to force the emotion. Another approach is through vicarious emotion. Watch someone else cry on screen. Read something that moves others to tears. Sometimes seeing emotion expressed safely by someone else gives your system permission to feel. From a biochemical angle, sometimes chronic numbness has a physiological component. Thyroid issues, vitamin deficiencies, hormonal imbalances can all affect your capacity to feel. If you've been working on the psychological side and nothing shifts, it's worth getting blood work done. Sometimes the block is partially physical and needs medical support alongside emotional work. Psychologically, there's also learned alexithymia. This is when you literally can't identify what you're feeling. You know something is happening in your body, but you can't name it. This often happens when emotions were never named or validated in childhood. You feel the sensation but lack the vocabulary. Building emotional literacy becomes part of the healing process. Here's what this looks like practically. You notice tightness in your chest. Instead of ignoring it, you pause and ask what emotion creates that sensation. You're literally teaching yourself to translate body signals into feeling words. From a trauma-informed perspective, sometimes the inability to cry is specifically about crying. Maybe crying brought punishment or abandonment, but other emotions might be more accessible. Rage might come through, fear might surface, disgust might emerge. These aren't lesser emotions. They're valid entry points into your feeling world. Start where your system allows access. Here's something about gender and crying. Men are often conditioned more harshly against tears than women. By the time they're adults, the shutdown is so complete they think they're incapable of crying. But they're not incapable. They're just more deeply conditioned. The pathway back might take longer, but it exists. Every man who has ever cried after years of numbness is proof that the capacity doesn't disappear. It just gets buried. For women, the conditioning is different, but equally damaging. Tears might be allowed, but only certain kinds. Sad tears might be okay, but angry tears are labeled hysterical. This creates its own kind of shutdown. From an attachment theory perspective, your crying pattern often mirrors your childhood attachment style. If you had dismissive caregivers, you learned tears didn't bring comfort, so why bother? If you had anxious attachment, you might cry easily, but the tears don't bring relief. Secure attachment allows tears that actually release and resolve. Part of healing is building that internal security so your tears can do what they're meant to do, process and release. Here's a reality check. Some people will never cry frequently, and that's okay. The goal isn't to become someone who cries all the time. The goal is to have access to your full emotional range when you need it. If you can cry when something genuinely moves you, even if it's rare, that's healthy. It's the complete inability to cry that signals a problem, not the frequency. Psychologically, there's power in choosing when to feel. Some situations genuinely require you to stay functional and table your emotions for later. That's different from involuntary shutdown. The difference is agency. Can you access the feeling later in a safe space, or is it gone completely, locked away where you can't reach it? From a spiritual perspective that some people find helpful, emotions are energy in motion. When you block them, you're blocking your own life force. This isn't woo-woo, it's physics. Emotions are electrochemical processes that need to move through your system. Chronic blocking creates stagnation. Allowing flow creates vitality. Whether you frame it spiritually or scientifically, the principle is the same. Here's what beginning to thaw actually feels like. First, you might notice increased irritability. Little things bother you more. This isn't regression, it's your system coming back online. Then you might feel more tired. Emotions take energy to process. If you've been running on numbness, feeling will initially exhaust you. This is temporary. Your capacity builds over time. You might also notice increased dreams, more vivid sensations, stronger reactions to music or art. These are all signs your emotional range is expanding. Celebrate them, even if they feel overwhelming. From a practical recovery standpoint, you need tools for when emotions do surface. Grounding techniques to keep you present, breathing practices to regulate intensity, ways to self-soothe that actually work for you. Because the goal isn't just to start feeling, it's to be able to handle what you feel without shutting down again. That requires building capacity gradually and having support systems in place. Here's something about the timeline. Some people start crying again after a few months of focused work. For others, it takes years. There's no standard time frame because everyone's history and nervous system are different. What matters is direction, not speed. Are you moving toward more feeling or more shutdown? Are you building capacity or reinforcing walls? Progress isn't always linear, but the overall trajectory matters. Psychologically, there's often a moment of breakthrough. Something happens and suddenly the tears come. It might be something small that breaks the dam. A song, a scene in a movie, a moment of kindness. That first cry after years of nothing can be terrifying and liberating simultaneously. Your body remembers how to do this. It was just waiting for permission and safety. Here's what you need to know if you're supporting someone who can't cry. Don't tell them to just let it out. Don't pressure them to feel. Don't make them feel broken for being numb. Instead, create safety. Be present without agenda. Let them know whatever they feel or don't feel is okay. Sometimes the most healing thing is someone saying, "I see you're hurting, even if you can't cry about it yet." From a neuroscience perspective, mirror neurons play a role here. When you're with someone who can hold space for emotion without fear, your brain picks up on that safety. Their regulated nervous system helps regulate yours. This is why therapy works when it works. You're borrowing your therapist's capacity to be with emotion until you can build your own. It's not weakness to need that support. It's how humans are wired to heal. If this video is resonating with you, drop the word release in the comments right now. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who might be struggling with emotional numbness, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in this makes all the difference. Here's my final message to you. Your inability to cry doesn't mean you're cold or broken or less than. It means you survived something that required you to shut down. That shutdown was intelligent and protective. Now you're in a different place. You're safe enough to consider feeling again. That's brave. The fact that you watched this whole video means part of you wants to reconnect with your emotions. Trust that part. Listen to it. Give yourself permission to feel at whatever pace your nervous system can handle. The tears will come when your body knows it's truly safe, not before. And when they do come, whether it's tomorrow or 2 years from now, know that every tear is your system releasing what it held for you when you couldn't hold it yourself. That's not weakness, that's completion. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications. We're building a community of people doing real emotional work, people who understand that healing isn't linear, and that's okay. Drop a comment telling me what part of this video hit hardest for you. I read every single comment, and your shares help other people find the content they need. Remember, you're not broken. You're not cold. You're just human, trying to survive in a world that wasn't always safe for your feelings. And learning to feel again is one of the bravest things you can do.